everyone, and welcome. Thank you for being here today. My name is Angela Clement, and I am the host of Awaken Your Soul Journey Beyond Grief, Finding Your Way in the Unknown. And I am delighted to have with me here today Andrew Caldarella. And Andrew is, he's a coach, he's a trainer, he's an inspirational speaker. He helps everyone live their best life and be a more positive influence in the world. He has overcome a lot of challenges, dyslexia, other learning or disabilities, being legally blind in one eye, to being bullied. And through all of those challenges, he has persevered and come up with the Seventh Foundation, the One Tribe, One Movement, One Party, and he's also the best-selling author of The Way. 7 revolutionary steps to living a meaningful life and making a real difference in the world. And so it is such an honor to have you here. Welcome to the series.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So I thought, well, we'll just start out by you just telling us a little bit more about what it is that you do.
Sure. Well, I've been doing a lot of things my whole life. If you look at my history, usually when I describe my life, people usually want me to start at the beginning a little bit. You mentioned a few of the things. So I was born in Detroit, Michigan, to parents fighting for the civil rights movement. And like you mentioned, I was born with dyslexia, other learning disabilities, and a lazy eye. The lazy eye meant they put a patch over my good eye to make me look out of my bad eye. I'm seeing 2200 vision at that point. You can imagine this kid walking around with dyslexia, a patch over his eye, couldn't read, couldn't do math, couldn't catch a ball to save my life, bullied relentlessly, like you said. And had teachers tell me I was too stupid to learn anything. I should just drop out of school. This was in an elementary school. And it set me up, a little bit behind the 8 ball, as they say. And it took a lot to get out of that. And through all of those experiences, it really did help me learn some valuable lessons. I did end up graduating from high school, went on to college, got degrees in speech communications, theology, and philosophy. Been an athlete my whole life in martial arts and philosophy. I've been really into religion and all of that to find the way that we can actually be our best. And I did discover a lot of secrets along the way, or not secrets necessarily, just I want to say golden truths and universal truths that if we all just kind of knew all of them, we could become better people and we could create a better world. And that's why I kind of gave up everything I was doing in 2015 to work on my book. And it came out right as the pandemic hit. The ebook was released in the beginning of 2020, the hardback at the end of 2020. And since then, I've just been trying to set everything up and explain this and get out there. And anyway, I know that was a little long-winded explanation, but kind of gives you an idea of where I've come from. And where I'm going is trying to literally share these best practices, these ways of doing things that will help all of us become the best people we can be, as well as fix our world, because we all know we need help there.
Yeah, yeah. And I know, just a little bit from your story that, we always say that, grief comes from the loss of a loved one, but grief comes from a lot of things. And, I know that even just, not living the life that you expected to live or, those kinds of things, we can grieve a disability. We can grieve if we have an accident, those kinds of things. So I know that you've had a whole host of that kind of experience. So how do you think that this has helped you through some of the challenges that you faced?
I will give you an example. So I was hit by a car in like the end of 1999, the beginning of 2020. And I was sitting at a stoplight, rear-ended 60 miles an hour, and ruptured disc in my back, blew out my hip. My leg was like 4 inches shorter. Agony. I mean, to the point where if you just took a deep breath, I get this spasm in my back and I couldn't move, and it was just horrible. And in the prime of my life, I did everything back then. Working out, doing all this stuff, and it went to doing everything to don't move, or else you're going to spasm out and being in pain all the time, and literally like laying in your bed. And I just started my business consulting ACE at that time, so I was working out of my bed in agony. And again, there's so much to say here, but this idea of who we are being tied to our bodies was kind of brought home to me as when I was a kid, in that, as a lot of faithful people believe, our soul, our spirit is using this vehicle for a temporary amount of time, and we move on to other experiences.
Mhm.
And when I was a child, because I'm being bullied so much, I was living in my inside world. I was seeing through, 2200 vision, which is like seeing through cotton. So I I had a lot of spiritual experiences throughout my life, and it was always kind of brought home to me, what is inside you, who you are, isn't necessarily reflected in your body or in the world around you and how people are treating you. My mother, if it wasn't for my mother, I would never have made it, honestly. She was the one that instilled this idea that you can be you, you can be happy, you can be anything you want to be. It doesn't matter what people are saying about you. It doesn't matter what's happening to you in the world. You can have a tragedy happen and still find that peace and that goodness and that wonderful part of you inside. And because of the way I was brought up, my sister also had a lot of operations and um, just almost died a lot of times in her life. And when you spend a lot of time in children's hospitals as a kid, it also brings home to you like this idea of like, oh my God, this is such a horrible place. Why is all this horrible stuff happening to you? How do you reconcile child dying of cancer or being horribly deformed or burned or whatever it may be, and help them understand? And I just want to bring this home. I talk about this one thing in the book. I had a conversation with this little girl when I was little. She was in a bed. She was dying, and I don't know how we got on the subject. We were talking about like what's really important. And she's like, and I was like, yeah, a lot of things are important. I was outside, this, that, and the other. And she goes, no, the most important thing is love. If it wasn't for love, I wouldn't want to be here anymore. Because she's in agony. She knows she's going to die. She goes, I used to play outside. I used to have friends. I used to do all of those things you're talking about. But if it wasn't for love, nothing else matters. And it kind of brought home to me. And I remember sitting there and looking at her and seeing my sister in her bed in agony. Um, and it was like, you're right. Nothing really matters without love, right? And if you understand that principle and what that means, like that's centered in Jesus and Jesus Christ. The whole idea of that isn't just believing in Jesus and going to heaven. It was like being Jesus-like, meaning loving your, people around you, being good, trying to figure out the problems of the world, and not being corrupted, and all the rest of these ideas. It's kind of like the embodiment of what all faith is about and all of life is about. So what I found is there are literally best practices around these key virtues that if you integrate them into your life, right, it can help you become a better person. And this is like the biggest problem in the world. You look at any problem in the world, it always comes down to a lack of understanding. And at the core, there is either a virtue that somebody's fighting for or a virtue that is not being implemented. I don't know, it was a little long-winded there too, but
No, no,
get me going here.
no, that's amazing. That's amazing. And you're right. It does all just, I do truly believe it comes right down to love, love for others and love for our own selves, and I think that might be the hardest part sometimes is that loving ourselves, especially when we get into adulthood. So yeah, speak more to, about your book and these different these different things that you teach about how to build a better life.
Sure, sure. It's a 497-page book. Let me see.
Yeah. Just summarize it,
No, I know. Just summarize it in 2 minutes. It's funny because you go on shows, and then when I first started doing this, that's what I was trying to do, and I was trying to get so much in, and I realized that I think the key idea here is, and one of the ones that I always kind of go back to, when I describe the way, I say the way is living rational, positive action. Okay, it's living because it's got to be something that we can literally live every day, every moment in our life. It can't be something we have to go to a mountaintop for 20 years and all this kind of stuff to get. It needs to be living, right? So we live it. Rational, meaning it's logical, it's reasonable, it's holistic, covering all these different areas of life. It's fun. You know what I'm saying? It's got to have all this rationality to it. It can't just be some fluffy spiritual nonsense that nobody can understand. So it's living rational, positive, and this is where it gets kind of deep. But this is one of those critical understandings that I think if all of humanity really understood, would really make a big difference. So it's living rational, positive. the traits that humanity desires the most, that we call the most positive, the most good, right? That we want the most, we call virtues. And there are a lot of virtues, from being dedicated and disciplined to happy, peaceful, you name it. Any trait that you see in somebody that you admire or that we're trying to teach our kids, responsibility, honesty, you name it, these are all virtues. Now, obviously, virtues taken too far without other virtues can cause a lot of problems. That's where we get in the idea of living rational, positive action. So it's virtues, like let's take a virtue of being punctual, right? So that's a virtue we all respect, but it requires best practices to make it real, like setting reminders and leaving on time. The virtue of being healthy, a lot of books say that, be healthy. Like, but how do you do that exactly? Like
Mhm.
literally, like, what are the steps? What do I need to do? So there are a lot of them. There's a lot of best practices around being healthy, from sleeping, exercise, eating, so forth and so on. And the same thing with raising your kids. And when you can apply the same idea of best practices and virtues and everything else to every organization that we have, right? And even just the idea of best practices to, say, water systems or governments or whatever it is that you're trying to do as a business. As business people, we're always trying to find out like, what is the best way to do this? What is the most efficient way? What is the most effective way? How can I make this better, right? And make my everything, work better. So this idea of living rational, positive action is about integrating key virtues and best practices into your life. Ideally, so, over every 90-day cycle. By the way, I should say, it takes about 90 days to build a habit. So what you're looking to do is integrate virtues and best practices into your life over every 90-day cycle. And that's literally how you make yourself a better and better person. And when you go through the way, you don't have to worry, I got you covered. So it shows you how to do this. And there's certain things, if you do every day, will build these virtues into your life. So I talk about the daily way and these best practices on how you do that. So it's like you get the knowledge and you implement the knowledge. So that's the idea of the way. And just quickly, so I know that not everybody's going to sit down and read a book nowadays. So I've created this Life Essentials Masterclass. Well, it doesn't cover every detail of the way. It goes through some of the major points and outlines what I'm talking about, as well as the one party, the one movement, and the one tribe, and kind of like how this all is the solution to what we're looking for. And again, it's not about me. This is about just finding some solutions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's great because it's nice for somebody to be able to step into it, kind of see if they like it, and then, take it further with your book, because it sounds like your book is very comprehensive. It sounds like that it's, I've got to get into it. I haven't got into it yet, but I'm sure that it covers every base, which we really need. That's what we really need. We need that kind of guidance.
Well, it's funny you said, because what I found throughout my life, it's always what you do not know that hurts you the most, right? And it's always those I know that you've experienced this. I wish I knew that when I was X, right? Oh, if I just knew that when I was a kid. I wish I knew that. It could be anything from a communication thing, from a relationship thing, from a body thing, to a bit, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? And it's all of these, I call them like the little golden threads. You weave them all together and you get these universal truths. So you share a number, you put all these universal truths and golden threads together, and it creates something greater than the sum of its parts. And what I found is it really does lead us down a path. That's why it's called the 7 steps, on how we can literally be our best and fix our world. Because like people talk about the systems of our society and, oh, we need to do away with government, we need to do with education, whatever it may be. And it's like, no, that's not the answer. The answer is that we're corrupted, right? We're not perfect. We certainly all haven't learned how to be our best. And this is reflected in our world, and our systems are literally rising out of slavery, oppression, serfdom, ignorance. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we inherit these as the next generation. And you look at the prison system, you look at the water systems with lead pipes and treating people inhumanely and not educating them and teaching them a trade and all the other pieces that obviously we need to do if we're going to fix our society. So to me, it's like, if you understand the basics of what it means to be good, I have what in the book I call the 10 laws, and you live by these 10 laws and you understand virtue and all the rest of it, a lot of the problems in the world would be fixed, because we could not do it the way that we're doing it, because it's immoral. right? It's
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
right. You wouldn't do this to your children. You certainly shouldn't be doing it to those children. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
So hopefully
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it probably will confirm for a lot of people some of the things that, yeah, they already knew they should be doing, and take the focus away from what's happening out in the outer world that we can't control, and take control of something our own, right? That we can control. And
Well, I think it's putting it in perspective. So I talk about the idea of uniting to not only be happy and, in your own personal little micro world, but also uniting so we can deal with large issues. The problem that we have in the world is that a lot of times the people that gain power, right, we become corrupted. And again, a lot of times it's not their fault because they don't have the tools to not be corrupted. Wealth, power, fame, even intelligence, beauty, or even holiness brings all of these huge challenges and tests along with it. It's not like that's the goal. It's like now you're on, you're taking this huge test. And we've seen when I've studied human history, uh, it's like, and mostly men, they fail this test over and over and over, and always becomes more and more for me and mine, and crushing the life out of people, and taking and whatever. And it's like anybody that says anything, they'll be destroyed. It's this sickness. I call it the sickness of superiority, and it's tied to the sin, what do you call the seven deadly sins of pride. The idea of, and again, most of the sins, it's like what do I say? It's like a slide rule. If you go too far, you can be prideful. You can say, "Oh, I have pride in my son. He did a good job. He ran a good race. I just took re-landscaped my yard. It looks wonderful. I take pride in that." But if you go too far and it's like, "Well, I'm the best landscaper in the world. Everybody should landscape like me. And if you don't, I'm going to destroy your life." You know what I mean? You've gone too far, right? With
yeah.
this idea of pride. So same thing with gluttony. It's like food. Yeah, you need to eat, right? You get to a certain point, like, hey, it's a virtue because now you're eating healthy, you're taking care of yourself. But if you do it wrong, right, it becomes this huge sin of gluttony. So the idea of pride is and greed are two of the number one sins or failings, or what do you want to call it? The opposite of virtue, of vice, that has really destroyed the world. You literally have people say like, greed is good. Right here, I hear that in movies. I hear leaders talk about that. It's not good. The corruption of the human spirit. This is the whole, like when you look at why we're here, and this idea of will you be corrupted or not? You have a choice to make. You have free will. We're not puppets. We're not just, you know, like I said, puppets on a string. God making everybody do anything. The whole point of this reality is for us to choose. And what I have found, and my biggest argument is, I don't think it's been fair because I don't think people have really understood what it means to be good, right? The idea of our religions and governments and organizations and everything else through time, they all have this manifestation to where they have been corrupted. We can clearly see this. And if you study human history, you can see it too. So how do we stop that? How do you stop like a pope who literally is like leading a church that has a 10 commandments that says do not kill and do not steal, yet for some reason he says let's go down to Christ's homeland and kill everybody and steal all their stuff and take
Mhm.
their land. You know what I mean? Like, how do you even rationalize that? And
Mhm.
that's what I've studied throughout human history. And it's always some rationalization. Oh, they're heathens, they're this, they're that. So therefore we get to do this, and it's this corruption of spirit. Whereas if you saw people as equal, you treated people as you want to be treated, the golden rule, and respected life and all these kind of fundamental beliefs, you couldn't do that, right? You're not
Right.
going to be killing somebody's children if you're treating them like you want to be treated.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. Yeah. So, what would you say to, someone who's trying to get through some challenges, some of the really dark emotions that come with grief, and trying to heal from that, trying to move through that? What advice would you give them?
okay, I actually have, just so you know, I have a video out. I didn't put the word grief in there, but it's called How to Overcome Negative Thinking, Depression, Suicidal Thoughts. There might be another word in there.
Mhm.
Anyways, in this video, I talk about this, and it happens with grief. Is that first of all, when you go through something really negative, it creates negative feelings. Negative feelings are negative chemicals that are flowing through your body, right? So when you're experiencing grief, you're experiencing like you're laying in bed, you just got hit by a car and you can't move, whatever it may be, these horrible feelings. it's like a cascading effect. The more you think about this negative thing, the worse you feel, and it keeps going round and round and round. You lost your husband to cancer. I lost my dad to cancer. I lost one of my best friends to cancer in college when we were on the crew team. The strongest guy in our crew team, benching 350, 375, died in a month and a half due to cancer.
Mm.
It's like, one, you have to realize that we're not in heaven. Okay, this is a mortal world. This happens to everybody. And so it's not, meaning it's not the end of the world. You're not the only one that has experienced it. You are going to pass on. So we have to realize that we're not alone. I think a lot of times when you're going through grief, you think, "Oh my God, I'm so alone." You're not. Everybody has experienced, or some, a lot of people have experienced what you're going through, and they get through it. There is a capacity within a human being, if you do the right things, to get through these things and actually become better for it and learn lessons. So, um, when you're going through any type of negative thinking, grief, and whatever, look for the lessons. Look for what it is you're trying to, what your soul, your spirit is trying to tell you. And a lot of times it might just be a lesson of really driving home how love is the key, right? If you really loved your husband, your father, whatever it may be, and you lose them, this pain that you feel is because you love, right? It's like
Mhm.
you can't have something really good without something really bad in this universe. It's just the way things work. It's like good and evil, uh, happiness and sadness. So what I always talk about when you're dealing with grief is to don't focus on the ending. If you love this person, there are moments, I call them the special moments throughout their life that you've lived. And if you've embedded them in your brain, you know what I mean? Live them. That's the whole point of this. You are never without your loved one. I can't even tell you how many people I've talked to that lost a child, a loved one, that feel like they're still with you. And it's the idea that um, that you carry a spiritual resonance, a spirit guide with you throughout your life after you lose somebody is a very, what do I want to say? I know a gentleman who lost his son, and he feels like his son is with him all the time, and it gives
Mhm.
him a feeling of peace and joy knowing that.
Mhm.
So I guess what I'm saying to you is at every sad moment, there's also this good part that you can focus on that will help you to overcome it. And I also go through, just in the video and in the book, I talk about this too, is what you're trying to do is like cultivate happiness through the sadness part, right? So working out, eating right, sleeping right, doing all these basic things will help clear out these negative chemicals in your body and allow you to help you recover. The idea is, the problem is a lot of people get something happen to them negatively, they lose their son, and then they start down a really negative path, right? You don't sleep, you start drinking, you start smoking, you start doing drugs. It makes everything worse. And then if you go through this huge negative thing for over 90 days, now you've developed a habit of negativity, right? Um, and then it could last for years and years and years, and people get comfortable. Believe me, when I was a kid, I wanted to kill myself because it was such a negative world. And when you get thrown in trash cans or stripped down naked or whatever it is by all these bullies, um, it doesn't make you feel good about yourself. It's like
Mhm.
people say it makes you stronger. No, it really makes you want to kill yourself. So for every kid like me that maybe made it out, there's thousands, if not millions of kids, that don't, or they just end up with this huge negative mindset and revenge and hatred and self-loathing and all this stuff. And so how do you get out of it? So the whole idea for my teachings is you need to go through this. You need to face it. You need to not ignore it. You need to learn the lessons. You need to understand what's happening to you and allow yourself to grieve. If you want to cry for 4 hours and bawl your head off, do it. You know what I mean? Don't hold that
Mhm.
back.
Yeah.
You can talk to yourself in your room. There's nothing wrong with that. You can talk to him and say all the things that you wanted to say that you couldn't say. Whatever it is, go through it. It doesn't matter, right? But at the same time, I always advise you not to fall down the rabbit hole of darkness, right? Don't start drinking. Don't start smoking. And if you did lose somebody, I always say this um, to people, understand, like, your child would not want you to ruin your life because they're gone, right? They
Mhm.
would want you to use this energy to do something good. And I look at the family who, and I always forget people's names, but there's a guy that goes out and fights for children that have been taken. He tries to find them and whatever. And his wife, his child was taken and murdered. So he used his life to help other people deal with it. Like you're helping people through grief. You know what I mean? It's like we go through things that's hard, and then we can help other people through them. So, and again, when you're going through this, I have like a list of 15, 20 things that you can do to, and again, it doesn't make it go away. It's not gonna, like you're not going to try to believe that you didn't lose your husband or whatever it may be. But if you're walking in nature, you are exercising, you are surrounding yourself with people that love you and doing fun things. This is important because, again, it's the cascade of chemicals in your body that's going to hurt you if it lasts for too long. It will literally age you. It will destroy your organs and your brain and everything else. You can't linger, for too long in
Mhm.
this. And also, I want you to know that you can have moments where you feel good during this grief. And again, if you focus on that moment, there's special moments with these people that you lost. Instead of remembering like Paul at the end of his life when he was laying in bed and he was dying, the strongest guy I knew, I remembered us rowing or running or whatever it was. You know what I mean? It was like, yeah, I remember that. I remember beating him up the hill, or whatever it is. And it's like and focus on those, and those will bring good chemicals into your body, and it will make what you're trying to experience something, even though it's negative, what I'm saying, more positive. And then if you do all these things, you can use this energy. I talked to one guy who lost his wife, and we talked about working out, and we both got a little addicted to it. But you can use that same negativity. Instead of smoking and drinking and sitting around and watching Netflix and punishing yourself, you can almost turn it the other way and work out and get that adrenaline and the good chemicals flowing through your body and build yourself up. And over 6-8 months, this guy became, he was overweight and whatever. He became super fit after he lost his wife. And it was a way for him to work through this in a positive way and to use all this negative energy in a positive way. I talk about, it's like transmuting the negative into the positive by taking all the negative energy and using it for something positive. That's how you can do it. Make sense?
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Because, that's what I feel like I was guided to do. That's why the summit happened, because I took that negative energy and decided, you know what, I'm just going to try and help as many people as I can. Right. And I've seen a lot of people, I've interviewed a lot of people who have done the exact same thing. Maybe not a summit, but something else, right? Sure. Something that they felt a passion for and were able to take all that energy and refocus it.
That's one of the things I talk about, is like helping other people helps yourself. So
Right.
if you're in grief, it doesn't even matter. You don't have to help people with grief. You could go down to the local shelter. You can help with dogs. You can help with kids. You can help with whatever. But that idea of helping, and believe me, you go out there and you help somebody and they're thankful, and the kids and they're smiling and this and that, your heart's gonna break and it's gonna make you feel good, and the good chemicals are gonna happen and all that. So absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it seems to me when I was listening to some of your videos, you had made some suggestions for helping younger people through grief. Do you have some advice for parents or people,
Yeah.
young people?
I,
Yeah.
I want to do a whole video just for kids. For one, I think the biggest thing about kids is to tell them this isn't going to last. I know it seems like this is it, and it's like it's going to last forever, and this is how it is forever. One of the things as a kid that I wish somebody told me is, and reaffirmed it with me, is that this isn't going to last. My mother always told me that what they're telling you isn't true, right? I was a weird kid because I had all these issues, but I also was semi-gifted in all these other ways. Somebody, I would say I'm genius, abstract thinking, and whatever, and polymath, or these terms don't mean anything when you can't do math, you can't write, you know what I mean? Like, so as a kid in the basic educational system, the cookie cutter approach to education didn't really work for me.
Mhm.
So I think one of the biggest things for children is to realize that they're ignorant, and they don't know how to deal with their emotions and their feelings and all of these things. And they don't know what is okay and not okay. And if your society is telling them it's not okay to, talk about wanting to kill yourself or all these problems, they're going to internalize it. And believe me, when a child speaks up once, they may never speak up again if you do not handle that situation right, which kind of happened to me.
Mm,
So because they've been slammed down, they're already bullied to death, and nobody's listening to them, and they cry out for help, and you're just dismissed. It's like, okay. So what I want to tell you to kids is, look, every one of you is special and unique and has ability to become a wonderful person. And I've seen this so many times where kids like me, I'm written off, like literally teachers telling me I'm too stupid to learn anything, mocking me in school, whatever, I should just get out. And then I turn out to be somebody who does get 3 degrees in college and is able to help people and do all this stuff. So let's not write off any children. Okay.
mm,
Realize that a cookie cutter approach doesn't necessarily work. We need to upgrade our educational system. Education is not wrong. Public education is what made America great to begin with, I think. One of the things anyway. So we need to improve it though. And with children especially, I think it's not just school learning, it's how to be a person. One of the things I go through in the way, and the third book, it's broken in 3 books. The second 2 books aren't out yet, but the third book, they've all been written. They're just in editing. The third book is the Child and Family Guide, and it literally talks about how we raise our kids with the best practices around these virtues that become their initial habits. So if you want to build in traits into a kid, right, that is dedicated, disciplined, has great coping skills to deal with all these issues, is healthy and happy and so forth and so on, there are things you do, right, that will help them learn the boundaries as well as how to learn self-control and self-creation abilities and how to participate in society and make friends and all these kind of things. It's just most of us aren't taught these things. We're almost left like not only to raise kids with ignorance, but we're like letting kids be raised without knowing these things, even in school. Like you concentrate on math and all these things, but do you teach a child how to think, how to deal with their emotions and feelings, and how to make friends, how to raise a child when you're in elementary or in high school? There should be more education on how to raise kids, the stages of development, the nutritional needs, the mental needs of a child as they're growing, so that everybody kind of gets an idea of how to do this. We don't, you know what I mean? So we're
mhm,
just left. I don't know. It's like we're 2023, and I'm going, okay, so we just discovered fusion power, but we don't know how to raise kids properly. We don't know how to have a water system in our society that works properly. You know what I'm saying? It seems like morality is out of balance. We haven't upgraded our sense of what it is to be humane, if that makes sense.
mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we lose sight what is really important. And as a school principal, looking back on the education system, not to say that it was terrible, but there's a lot missing. There's a lot missing. And I don't know whose responsibility it is, but somebody has to become responsible for teaching
Yeah.
younger people to all of these things, all of
Well, I
these.
think our whole educational system kind of rose out of slavery and serfdom, right? Sit
Mhm.
down, shut up, don't move.
Right.
Humans are not meant to sit down, shut up, and don't move all day. Okay, it's
Mhm.
like we're lions, and we're trying to train you to be a cow. Like, you
Right.
know what I mean? It's and people are like, oh, we need to drug all these kids that have ADHD. It's like, no, these are little boys who need to run around like crazy for hours and do stuff every single day. Otherwise, they're going to go crazy. So if they're not listening to you, it's because you're not educating them properly. One of the best ways that my dad used to deal with me would have me run around and do stuff like math or run around the block before he had a conversation with me because I was too antsy. I have so much energy, it was ridiculous. So you're not going to sit there and have a deep conversation with me for 20 minutes if I'm like, you know what I mean? I just can't deal with all this energy. You got to burn it off.
Mhm.
So, and again, I think our whole educational system, because of how it came about, the idea of it is good, right? We obviously want to raise our kids, and doing it communally and all of this makes a lot of sense, allows people to work and so forth and so on. What we teach, how we teach it, hasn't really evolved since what, like the 1600s, stand in front of a teacher and so forth and so on. And, where's the fun? gamification of education. I think kids should all just wear sweats to school or something that they can move around in, and it's work out and learn all day long. So when you come home from school, you are mentally and physically, emotionally, everything kind of spent. You're ready to just relax and go to sleep.
Mhm.
So many teenagers I talk to, they also don't have enough exercise. They don't know how to deal with all the hormones and chemicals in their bodies, and it's making them crazy. I mean,
Mhm.
boys especially need a lot of exercise and mental training to be able to handle their this maleness thing that you can see that's played out in our society with all these bullies and overacting and murderers. Who are all the murderers? Right? They're all men, right? You don't see it. It's not even close in percentage. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
men, we got a problem we got to fix for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know what? You truly are an inspiration. I mean, you've moved through a lot of things. You've got a lot of wisdom to share with the world. Tell us a little bit about your offer, about your masterclass, how to become your best and help fix our world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the master class is basically starts off with answering kind of the big questions. I was like, okay, so my question is, I always ask people, so how are we going to fix our world and become our best? And when you ask this question and you really get down to it, we all need to understand some information, right? And we need to take some action. And it's like I said, there's best practices. There may be 10 best practices on a certain thing, right? These two work for these people, these four, but it's all about how you accomplish this main goal. So the first master class and all of them are designed to kind of get us all on the same page regarding these main issues of life, the critical, what do I say, the critical parts of your life and the critical parts of our society, so that we can then take that next step. There's no way that we are going to fix some major complex issues if we can't even agree, for instance, for example, if 2 + 2 = 4, and if you think it equals 5 and this guy thinks it equals 6, we're never going to come to an agreement. So the masterclass focuses on big universal truths. What is the meaning of life? How to achieve the true goal of life? What are the steps on actually how you become a great person? I'm trying to remember the actual names of the class. It's funny because of the way my disability works sometimes is literally, if I want a name, it's just not there. I literally like name this. I look at it all the time and I can't pull it up. But the first class is uh, oh gosh, the meaning of life. Like, what is the meaning of life? That's what it
Right.
is.
Yeah.
So, and I talk about the rules of life and the meaning of life, and that kind of sets up the stage for then what is the true goal of life? And that's the second class. Go through that, and we talk about the difference between success and true success, wealth, power, fame. Some of the biggest problems in the world with leadership in that class. And then the third one is how to achieve the true goal of life. And that's when I go through the way, the seven, or not the 7 steps there, but I go through the way and how it works, what it means to be a good person, the ideas of virtue and vice, and really kind of the foundation of what all of our society, faith, what you want as a mom for your kids, that whole idea of what we're trying to do. Then I
Mhm.
go through the 7 steps of the way, kind of give an outline. And the last class, the graduation day, is big picture and next steps in graduation. And the big picture, I really kind of put the whole thing together and show everybody how it can be the solution we're after. Meaning, if we get the knowledge, we know how to become our best, we know how the world works, the systems work, we know how to make them better, right? And then we join in the one tribe, the one movement, and the one party. The tribe is where we kind of learn and share and have friends and do good stuff together. The one movement is, let me just say it like this. Like, the biggest problem in the world right now is we have so many people fighting for movements, right? Every week you almost hear about a new one, right? Oh, we're fighting for equal rights here, there, environmental, whatever it may be. There's thousands and thousands of them all over the world. And how much effort? I mean, they're applying a lot of effort, but how many results are we seeing?
Mhm.
We're still not seeing the results. There's no international Bill of Human Rights, really, that all countries agree to, policing, whatever it may be, right? It's just a
Mhm.
madness. And my point is, on the one movement, imagine all of those people and all those organizations now in one organization, the one movement, where we then could have, let's say, 1 billion people in this organization. We could focus on issues like the climate change. We could buy rainforests. We could buy companies. We could do all sorts of things to peaceably force the positive changes in the world that need to be happen. I outline how to do that in the book, as well as in the masterclass. And then the other one is the one party where we need laws. We need to make everything real. A lot of the parties in the world, they're all old world parties, meaning they're more like special interest groups. They're more like, I picked these 4 virtues above all the other virtues, and it makes for craziness. Then we end up with extremists running parties, because the more time that goes by, the more people that are really into whatever that party is doing usually becomes the leaders, and they keep driving it further and further from normality and what we really need, solutions, to one-sided solutions. So we need a new party that's more like, we're about the party of solutions. We're about making government work properly, efficiency, effectiveness, and dealing with every issue facing the society in a way. It's not the government solution, but it's also business and the private sector and everybody else that needs to be a party of this. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of complexity here. I can't go through it all.
Yeah,
I know
no,
we're
no.
short of time, but
Yeah.
I always try to get as much as possible and try to explain everything.
Yeah,
Hopefully it makes
well,
a little bit of sense to you.
oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it sure does. Yeah. And I know people are going to want to check that out. Check out your master cat class, and also check out your book. And, is there anything you want to say in parting? Any final words?
sure. I would say if they want to find out everything, the hub for everything is a website, and I named it 7wayme. That's the number 7, WAY.me. And it's named that because the book's the way. It has 7 steps. And I have the 7th foundation is the organization I'm working to start that's going to back everything up. So you just go to 7wayme. You can learn about the way. You can find all the places to buy it all over the world. You can join the master class, watch all the videos that I'm doing. Pretty much everything is on there and linked. So check that out. And, again, I just want to say that this is not about me. Okay. There are solutions in the world. All the doomers out there, and when I say doomers, I mean all the people that see that this is the human race and our world is seriously doomed if we do not make a great change. All of you, I'm with you. I believe that too. But there is a solution. The solution is not to burn everything down and start a great war. If you're a good person, we need to do this through love, not hatred. So what I'm saying is check out the master class, check out the way. There is a better way to do all of this, that we can actually create better worlds and better lives for everybody. And it doesn't have to be such a hateful, harmful experience in doing so. So there is hope out there, people. Please help me and help all of us do all of this.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking the time again. I really appreciate it. I thank everybody for watching. And until next time, bye for now.
Bye, everybody.